Okay, I'm going to say welcome to the Rainbow District School Board regular board meeting. Sincere apologies to everyone who has been waiting for this meeting to begin. We are running late, and for that, I apologize. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please be advised that this meeting is being live streamed and will be archived. We'll begin the meeting with a roll call. And for the record, would you respond when I call your name? So Linda Dubosky.
Present.
Carrie St. Jean.
Present.
Anita Gibson.
Present.
Judy Cosmerly.
Present.
Nina Morrison.
Present.
Doreen Dewar is present. Judy Hunda.
Present.
Margaret Stringer.
Present.
Bob Clement.
Present.
I believe we have the Director of Education and the staff at the boardroom. First item is the approval of the agenda for the regular board meeting of August 18th, 2020, moved by Trustee Hunda, seconded by Trustee Morrison. Poll vote, Director Blazik.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bob Clement.
In favor?
Trustee Dubosky.
In favor.
Trustee Dewar.
In favor?
Trustee Gibson.
In favor.
Trustee Hunda.
In favor?
Trustee Cosmerly.
In favor.
Trustee Morrison.
In favor.
Trustee St. Jean.
In favor.
Trustee Stringer.
In favor.
Carried.
Thank you very much. The motion is carried. Preliminary declarations of pecuniary interest. So we have a presentation on the new math curriculum, grades 1 to 8. Director Blazik.
Yes, Madam Chair, so we're going to have Superintendent Noble review the slide deck with you. This is the new math curriculum. She will verify for the targeted grades and, of course, give a very broad overview in terms of what to expect. I should note that that probably in later fall you are going to get a much more detailed piece and you get to see what that looks like, but I think it's suffice today that we share with you what the ministry expectations are beginning for September 8th. I turn it over to Superintendent Noble.
Thank you, Director Blazik. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a high-level overview of the changes to the math curriculum from grades 1 to 8 being implemented this September. Just a general reminder that the kindergarten curriculum has not been revised and that the grade 9 math curriculum is currently undergoing revisions in order to de-stream, and this program will be implemented a year from now in September 2021. During the course of this evening's presentation, I will address the following topics: the rationale behind the updates, guiding principles, some high-impact instructional practices upon which the new curriculum is based, key changes, assessment and evaluation, supports and professional learning resources, and take some questions at the end. The curriculum updates are intended to improve student performance in math, as well help students solve everyday math problems, additionally increase students' employability for the jobs of tomorrow. The curriculum updates are also intended to ensure that students have skills required to succeed. These updates reflect recent research and practice that have provided a clearer understanding of how students learn. Everyone should understand that the Ontario Elementary Math Curriculum was last updated in 2005. With respect to the guiding principles, the new curriculum incorporates expert knowledge and leading edge research, as well as learning from other jurisdictions and stakeholders. It shows the value and the joy of math through real-life examples and tasks. It addresses learning gaps as informed by EQAO and other assessments, as well as reducing the number of expectations in the curriculum. The new curriculum is based on high-impact instructional practices, and we know that effective math instruction begins with knowing the identity and the profile of the students, knowing their learning strengths. It means having high expectations for all students. It reinforces that all students can learn and can do mathematics. Effective math instruction uses culturally relevant and responsive practices and differentiated learning experiences to meet the learning strengths and needs of individual students. Effective math instruction also develops conceptual understanding and procedural fluency. It focuses on skill development, communication, and problem solving. Finally, it takes place in a safe, positive, and inclusive learning environment where all students feel valued, empowered, engaged, as well as able to take risks. So what are these key changes? We now have the same curriculum learning expectations for both English language and French language students. We have consistent overall expectations throughout the grades. We have foundational ideas that are now developed from the early grades. We have been given time for consolidation in grade 8. Ultimately, there are 151 fewer expectations. To go deeper into the nature of the changes inside the curriculum content, I'd like to highlight changes under each of the following strands. Number sense, which now includes fact fluency. Algebra, which now includes coding. The spatial sense strand now includes geometry and measurement. There's a new financial literacy strand. Our data strand now includes probability. And finally, there's an overall strand that underpins each of the other strands, a social emotional learning skills and mathematical processes strand. Specific to changes under the number strand, these changes include a focus on fact fluency, including multiplication and related division facts. We now have consolidation of our facts from the 2 facts, the 5 facts, and the 10 facts in grade 3, up to the 10 facts in grade 4, up to the 12 facts in grade 5, and in grade 6, students will be looking to consolidate related division rules. Fractions will be introduced in grades 1 through 3 through fair sharing. On a side note, fair sharing is the best way to explain fractional amounts to young children. So for example, if your parent makes 24 cupcakes for your birthday and there are 6 at the party, how many cupcakes can each child have? Because young children don't understand about denominators and numerators, they sure know that if they have to split a chocolate bar with their friends, how much each one of them is going to get. Changes to the number strand also include working with numbers up to 200 in grade 2, adding and subtracting fractions beginning grade 5, and working with integers beginning in grade 6. As a general reminder, integers are both positive and negative whole numbers. Changes to the algebra strand include reading, altering, and writing code beginning in grade 1, solving inequalities beginning in grade 4, simplifying algebraic expressions in grades 6 to grade 8. Students in all grades will work with all types of patterns, relationships, and expressions to develop algebraic reasoning using mathematical modeling to better understand and make predictions about real life. Changes to the data strand include formulating questions that can be answered by collecting, organizing, displaying, and analyzing data beginning in grade 1, making and testing predictions beginning in grade 1 as well, examining a set of data to determine the mode from grade 2 onwards, the mean, grade 3 onwards, and the median from grade 4 onwards, as well as communicating findings using infographics beginning in grade 4. Changes to the spatial strand include focusing on length in grades 1 to 3, area in grades 3 to 6, and volume in grades 7 to 8. Students will use units to estimate and measure length, mass, and capacity beginning in grade 2. They will use analog and digital clocks and timers in grade 3. They will work with circles and cylinders in grade 7, and they will apply the Pythagorean theorem in grade 8. Changes also include a new financial literacy strand that focuses on learning about money concepts in grades 1 to 3, financial management, consumer and civic awareness beginning in grade 4, designing a budget in grade 5, understanding interest rates and bank fees in grade 6, understanding and comparing exchange rates and currency conversion in grade 7 and 8, and comparing credit card fees, rates, and incentives in grade 8. Changes also include a new focus on social emotional learning skills and mathematical processes. These will be instructed and assessed across the 5 other strands, and these skills and processes will help students see themselves as being capable and confident math learners. It will help them develop confidence, cope with challenges, and think critically. It will also help them use the mathematical processes that are key to learning and doing mathematics. Specifically, students will learn to identify and manage their emotions, recognize sources of stress and cope with challenges, maintain positive motivation and perseverance, build relationships and work to communicate effectively, develop self-awareness and a sense of identity, think critically and creatively as they apply the mathematical processes. All in the effort to express and manage their feelings, respond to stress, and build resilience, test approaches with optimism, learning from their mistakes as they collaborate and build healthy relationships and see themselves as capable and make connections with mathematics to everyday contexts. Our teachers will continue to use the existing math achievement charts from Growing Success Assessment, Evaluation, and Reporting in Ontario schools, grades 1 to 12. Teachers will now report in one overall mark instead of a mark for each of the 5 strands as in the past. They will assess and evaluate the social emotional learning skills and mathematical processes strand through the remaining strands. Teachers will be able to access resources and supports on the Ministry of Education curriculum website, as well as on September 3rd, we will provide professional learning to grade 1 to 8 teachers during the Professional Development Day and have program consultants and coordinators supporting the implementation of the new curriculum through ongoing professional learning opportunities throughout the school year. At this point, I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
I have a question. No.
Please go ahead.
I have a question. I have a question from Trustee Morrison. And I had, Trustee Clement. And Trustee Cosmerly to start. Trustee Morrison.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Superintendent Noble. Judy, you addressed some of this in the last couple of pages, but it's related to the fact that there's an awful lot going on right now. And so I'm looking at changing math curriculum. I'm glad they delayed I think we're all supportive if it changed the math curriculum, but it's the timing of all of this. And to also, I'm glad they delayed the implementation of the secondary portion until next year. But we're now in 2 weeks our staff are expected to deliver a new math curriculum. And there's lots in there that I can see to like, but are they going to be ready to do that? And do they have the support that they're able to switch gears on this in the midst of a whole lot of other changes, including de-streaming at grade 9, and I'm not even going to state the obvious, in a pandemic world where we're worried about health and safety issues as we're trying to get our kids back to school. Thanks, Superintendent Noble.
I think one of the good news pieces inside this curriculum is that we are focusing on social emotional needs through the curriculum. And I think that's a really important place to start as we work our way through this pandemic. But secondly, the fact is that we've been looking for some curriculum around financial literacy as well as coding. We know that many of our schools are already working on these items, so this is not entirely new to our classrooms and our teachers. We do have financial supports coming in the way of a PPF. We have over $500,000 that has come our way to provide ongoing math supports, to work with our teachers, to help our students. And the other thing, I guess, that I would feel important is it's a trial year. This is 1 year where we are not asking our grade 3 and our grade 6 teachers to undergo EQAO assessments with their children. It's a great way to starting slowly and working our way through the strengths in our program and recognizing that we have 151 fewer expectations, which I'd say is a bit of a good news story.
Supplementary.
If I could,
Trustee Watson.
I'll keep it very brief. Again, thank you very much for that answer, Superintendent Noble. That relieves my mind a bit. And yes, I'm sure all of us remember things like the financial literacy strand. We're all glad to see that being added. That was fought for by the Ontario Student Trustee Association as well. And of course, coding we've seen in action in classrooms in Rainbow for the last several years. So I thank you for that answer, and it reassures me somewhat, Judy, that we're going to be prepared, as our staff always is, and able to adapt and pivot to whatever the next new challenge is. Thank you.
So I have, pardon me, Trustee Clement, Trustee Cosmerly, Trustee Stringer, and I just have to say that Trustee Dubowski and Trustee Gibson, I don't have you on the screen, so if you do put your hands up, I can't see you. However, we're going to proceed with Trustees. Is it Clement next? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Judy, thank you for that. I hear a lot of interesting things that I would have liked to have seen throughout the years, the financial part. Also, what age did you say they start coding at?
Coding begins in grade 1.
Yeah, because I'm remembering my college days where I took coding, which was called electronic data processing back there, and taking algebra and Fortran. And I said, then you made me shiver there when you said algebra and coding. Same brought back memories. But to see that at a very young age, it's really, really something. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Cosmerly.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I too am excited by a lot that's been provided in the presentation. My fear is same as Trustee Morrison, is about how it's going to be delivered when we have some students that'll be in a classroom, some students doing this remote. Like, how much preparation are teachers getting, and how are we going to juggle through a time of COVID? Thank you.
Great question. I believe that it is going to take us some time to understand the changes. It'll take us some time to digest what needs to happen. We do have time being provided to us by the Ministry of Education through funding release. Nothing is going to happen day one. Training is going to happen day one, but we do have lots of time. I really like the fact that they are considering student mental well-being and their social well-being as we begin to make our way through this curriculum. But great question. It is going to take us some time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Stringer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Superintendent Noble. I also have a concern about the timing of this introduction of this new curriculum. We are in the midst of a pandemic. I will say I'm very happy to see the emotional piece in there. In terms of the fact fluency and coding, that fits in very well with what Rainbow Board has been focusing on in the last number of years. To Superintendent Noble, what are the challenges that you see with this curriculum, and what really will stand out as different for Rainbow students?
We, as you said, have been working for a number of years on fact fluency, so that won't be new. The financial strand is definitely new, but I do believe that there's many ways to make that very engaging for students. It's real life, and I think that that was the reason that the Minister of Education has pressed forward with these changes, is that he is looking to improve the connections to the real world for our students so that they can see themselves and the reason behind a lot of the mathematics as we move forward in this new curriculum.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe that was it. Oh, okay. Trustee Gibson.
Thank you, Chair Dewar. I just wanted to reiterate some of the other comments regarding the social and emotional learning piece. I've been a fan of adding that to the curriculum for quite some time, ever since I heard a lady by the name of Dr. Linda Colgan speak about it. And she's very vocal about how it can be quite acceptable for people to sort of say things like, oh, I'm just no good at math, or math is just not for me, when we often don't hear those sorts of statements made around the literacy piece. So I'm very happy to see that this hopefully will ignite some excitement for math and inspire some children's interest in math. And I was just wondering, with regarding to the discussion about teachers' professional development, I know we have 3 days before the school starts. Is one of those days, or a large portion of one of those days, dedicated to this new change to the curriculum, so that they will have some training before school even starts?
Yes, that's correct. September 3rd, we will be digging in with our teachers in grades 1 to 8 into the new curriculum, trying to dissect it with them and underscore some of the new changes.
Great. So it sounds like they'll have a little bit of a chance to do a deep dive there with their colleagues, and I think that sounds great. So that was my comment. Thank you very much, Superintendent Noble.
And thank you, Trustee Gibson. Superintendent Noble, would you like to continue?
That's the end of the presentation. Thank you very much.
I thought there was, I'm sorry, I was thinking there was more. I'm so sorry. My sincere apologies. Thank you very much. I forgot myself all mixed up here. Sorry. Report from in-camera committee of the whole meeting. There being none. Old business, previous minutes, motion that the minutes of the regular board meeting held on July 15th, 2020 be approved. Moved by Trustee Cosmerly, seconded by Trustee Morrison. Poll vote, Director Blazek.
Trustee Clement,
In favor.
Trustee Dubosky,
In favor.
Trustee Dewar,
In favor?
Trustee Gibson,
In favor.
Trustee Honda,
In favor.
Trustee Cosmerly,
In favor.
Trustee Morrison,
In favor?
Trustee St. Jean,
In favor.
Trustee Stringer.
In favor.
Carried.
Thank you very much. The motion is carried. Moving on, capital update. I'd like to call on Superintendent Bazinet.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This evening, we have a verbal capital update, and Sandy Ackroyd, our Manager of Capital Projects, will be presenting an update on the status of all our major capital projects. And then I have some additional financial information to provide to trustees as it relates to the Llewellyn project. So Sandy is moving up to the podium to speak to you on the status of our projects.
Good evening. I'm here to provide you with a short update of all the projects and where we're at as of today and where we will be on September 8th. While the students and staff have been off, we have been extremely busy working in the schools, and I can guarantee that we will have all of our students in the schools on September 8th. So that's the good news. We've had several delays over the course of the summer, and with COVID, we've had delays with materials and laborers, but we've been able to complete all the projects, and we have a few things. As larger projects, we tend to have projects that go through a couple of years. So we will be still working at Chelmsford, CVDCS, the JK to 12 school. And we will be finishing up some smaller items at some other schools. I will give you a little bit more of an update on a per project basis. So LaSalle 7 and 8 renovation will be 100% complete for August 31st. Over the past 2 years, we've invested over $7 million into revitalizing the classrooms for both elementary and secondary students. The renovations include new LED lightings, replacement of all ceiling tiles and floors that contain asbestos. We have new building automation systems. We've done some re-roofing. All the new electrical services have been upgraded. We have a lockdown system. We have accessibility upgrades. And we have an elevator renovation, which was deferred until next year because of deliveries due to the COVID. We will be also working on renovations and site services in the parking lot. So LaSalle is a campus that will include the Dome, include the elementary school, and we will be doing portions of the site to accommodate each year as we're growing. So we're working on the back section of the school where the Dome is, and for the 7 and 8, so they'll have an area for play in the fall. The Dome will be 100% complete as of August 31st. We're once again doing a little bit of site work right now, but it will all be completed. We have broken ground on the new Sudbury Elementary School, and the foundations are in progress. We anticipate that the completion will remain as October occupancy for 2022. Espanola High School, we have completed the last portion of the roofing section and ventilation renewal. Geiger, we have completed the boiler replacement, a complete new building automation system, and we're just finishing up on some brick replacements and on the gym and roof. Llewellyn Secondary student, Llewellyn, I just touched a button here, Llewellyn Secondary. We will be 90% complete as of August 31st. Over the past 2 years, we've invested $70 million in infrastructure and revitalization of the space. We have done some extensive structural work by removing the stairs at the front of the school and replacing the entire library floor, which took a lot longer than we had anticipated. We've revitalized the new entrance. We have ventilation upgrades, new electrical and gas services, new plumbing fixtures and plumbing lines, new LED lighting. We've repurposed the cafeteria into 2 classrooms and have created a new science lab. We've also revitalized the library and cafeteria space. Churchill Public School, we'll be about 90% complete as of August 31st. We've done approximately $1.2 million worth of work for ventilation and heating lines and electrical and gas services. We've also revitalized 3 special ed rooms, and those will be complete for August 31st. The balance of the work will be completed until October 31st. Chelmsford JK to 12 school will be about 80% complete. The elementary school will be 100% complete, and students will have a place to sit on September 8th. We've been focusing mainly on the elementary school to ensure that that space is ready to receive the students. We will have areas in the secondary school that we will be working, and that work will continue on over the year, either on evenings, or we'll be hoarding off sections of the school, and we'll be coordinating everything with Principal Williamson there. So I don't have any pictures for you tonight. We will have some pictures for you in September. I'm sorry, one other project. Manitoulin Secondary. We've invested $6 million worth of, invested $6 million in infrastructure and revitalization renovations. We have replaced all the domestic water lines. We have LED lighting. We've replaced all the ceiling tile. We've done painting, ventilation, building automation systems, and we've revitalized the front entrance and created a smudging room at the front of the school. The only work left to be done there after August 31st will be brick repair. And that's it. I can take any questions if anyone has anything.
Any questions, trustees? Trustee Morrison?
Thank you, Sandy, and thank you to you and your colleagues and working with all the contractors to get these projects still moving forward, even during this COVID period. And we know the construction industry really was shut down, at least, I think, for at least 2 to 3 months from March till the end of May. So thank you for getting all that work, because we know, Sandy, how important it is to have facilities that are up and running in good shape. And particularly, I'm sure all of us were particularly interested to hear that as part of these revitalization projects on these schools, you're looking at things like ventilation systems and HVAC systems. So I thank you for the update, Sandy, and I look forward to seeing the pictures. Those are always exciting. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Morrison. Anything else? Thank you, Sandy.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Gibson, excuse me. Sandy, could you hold on a second?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm not sure if my question is for Ms. Ackroyd or it's just at the last meeting we had talked about with Superintendent Bazinet, not Ms. Ackroyd. We had talked about regarding some information regarding ventilation systems at our properties and being able to identify which properties had recent upgrades, and certainly from that list I can see a few. But what about the properties that weren't mentioned? Is there information that's going to be forthcoming about them? Perhaps to Superintendent Bazinet, because he was the person that I had that discussion with.
Yes, thank you. Essentially, the update that is currently underway under this topic on tonight's agenda is limited to our major capital projects that are underway, and it was primarily to inform trustees as to the status and reaffirm that we are prepared to receive our students September 8th. In reference to the ventilation system for other schools, I do believe that will become part of the topic of discussion further in our agenda.
Okay, thank you. I'll hold on and see what comes up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe Superintendent Bazinet, did you want to
Yes,
say
thank
anything
you.
else?
Yes, I was just waiting to see if there were additional questions for Sandy from trustees. The only component that I wanted to add is in terms of the Llewellyn Park project. When we came to the board and announced our intentions for this project, the scope of the project was defined in such a way that the cost could be covered by school condition improvement funding and school renewal. The scope of the project has evolved as we have moved forward. And as trustees are well aware, we're under space pressures at that school from a student perspective. We've already added some additional external portables, and we saw the opportunity through consultation with the architect to add a new science room as part of the renovations that are currently underway. So given the change in the scope, we are no longer able to cover all the costs under the SCI funding as well as renewal. Therefore, in the current fiscal year, we will need to supplement the funding from our reserves, and the estimated cost at this point is $500,000. So between now and August 31st, there's a component that needs to be funded from our reserves, and it essentially is a type of contingency. Thank you.
Trustee Gibson.
Thank you, Chair Dewar. Through you to Superintendent Bazinet, just regarding general capital information. Can you provide an update about the property that was declared surplus in Espanola at AB Ellis? Has there been, can you just provide, we declared it surplus, can you just provide what's happened since then? I know there was a community group that was interested into trying to turn it into community housing. So can you just give me an update on that, please?
Thank you. Yes, through you, Madam Chair. Trustees will recall that the motion was limited to declaring the building only surplus at the time, and it was to allow the interested community group to pursue whether or not they could secure funding to convert the building into residential. That has fallen through. They were not able to secure any funds. Therefore, as we sit at this time, the building and property belong to Rainbow Board. It is currently occupied by the Huron Superior Board for the balance or a portion of the current fiscal year until their new school is ready. So essentially, nothing has changed from last year.
Okay, supplementary, if I may. So it's still occupied at the moment. When do we envision that they are moving out? Have they provided a date?
Thank you. Essentially, at this time, they have not provided a firm date.
Okay, but once they do move out, at that point, you're saying that there's no further discussions with the community group, so we'd be looking at putting the property on the market? Or because it's just the building that's been declared surplus, so I suppose at some point the property or a part of it would have to come back to be declared surplus, is that correct?
No, essentially, the original intentions as far as the Espanola project involved the demolition of that building as additional parking is needed for both schools that are now part of the entire complex, which is essentially ABLS attached with Espanola High School. So the original intention of the project was to move forward and secure additional funding from the ministry for the demolition of the building and the conversion of that property into parking.
So it's just one more supplementary, if I may. So have we applied to the ministry, or we're not there yet?
The ministry had approved in principle or in concept originally when the project was presented. However, there is a need for us to reapply once we get closer to that actual need.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. The next item is tenders or requests for proposal. Motion, pardon me, that the board award the contract for supply of broadband internet services, RFP 2020-08 as follows: to Eastlink, 33 locations, to ViaNet Incorporated, 13 locations. Moved by Trustee Clement, seconded by Trustee Morrison. Somebody going to speak to this, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will request that our Manager of Information Services, George Gauthier, is going to come to the podium to provide a little bit of additional information regarding this RFP contract.
Thank you.
Good evening. Essentially, our contract for internet services for all of our schools was up this summer, so we were in need to search for a vendor or multiple vendors to provide internet services to all of our locations. And by all of our locations, I mean our school locations. It also includes some of our programs that we have, such as Frank Flowers, Noswakamok, and all of our other locations that we have internet access to. And this has provided us an opportunity to our change in our network in our schools has provided us that opportunity to have multiple vendors provide internet access to our schools. So that's essentially what it was.
So once again, we've got 33 locations to Eastlink and 13 locations to ViaNet. And you did receive this report via email. Trustee Morrison?
Quick question through you, Madam Chair, to George. I'm assuming this is about sort of geographic area and coverage or service levels, but it's unusual for us to see multiple providers. So George, I'm wondering if you could just give us a brief explanation about why we went with the two providers.
Sure, we did an evaluation. So essentially we changed how our network, how all of our locations are connected to the internet. We used to have one vendor because of how they were all connected through the board office, but now every location has a direct connection to the internet. And as you might remember, there was some funding for us we had broadband funding provided to us in the last couple of years that allowed us to have direct connections from each location. And the advantage is vendors were able to competitively bid for each location and be awarded to separate vendors. So we'll actually see a huge savings in our internet costs next year in the area of about $150,000.
And improve service?
So we are meeting the ministry's broadband initiative of 1 megabyte per student. So in every area, we have a minimum of 1 megabyte per student at each school.
Thanks, George.
Welcome.
Trustee Gibson and then Trustee Cosmerly.
Thank you. Just following up on what Trustee Morrison said in terms of bandwidth. So it's great to hear that we're saving money, by the way. That's always a good thing. So the bandwidth that we will have will be sufficient for, obviously, we're going to have much higher needs for online learning, especially at high school when we're streaming out of classrooms. So you're confident that will be sufficient for those needs?
Wi-Fi in all our schools is going to be excellent. Our connections to the internet are going to be excellent and will provide the necessary bandwidth. We are hoping that the internet is working very well. So yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Trustee Cosmerly.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, just one question as to why we're going with two different internet providers. Is it because like one doesn't do our whole geographic area?
Well, essentially, our evaluation criteria, aside from fees, had different areas, and each vendor was evaluated. Each vendor was evaluated for each location, so that's why there are just different vendors that are supplying that internet connectivity for different locations.
Thank you.
Trustee Clement.
Hey, George, Madam Chair, George, I've been involved with both. From what I understand, I'm on VNet now, and I was with Eastlink before, and when I went to VNet, they're off Eastlink lines anyways. So that always confuses me a little bit. So what does that mean? They're both on the same line.
Well, I really don't know how I really don't know how that works, essentially. But I do know that I forget the name of the rules, but there are CCRA rules that say that a vendor can't own the fiber on poles, so that they have to rent it out to other companies. So I'm thinking this is the agreement that they must have, but that's beyond me.
I know that. Thank you, George. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe do I have a mover and a seconder
Yes, you do.
for this? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we'll call the question, poll vote, Director Blazik.
Trustee Clement,
In favor.
Trustee Dubosky,
In favor.
Trustee Dewar,
In favor?
Trustee Gibson,
In favor.
Trustee Honda,
In favor.
Trustee Cosmerly,
In favor?
Trustee Morrison,
In favor?
Trustee St. Jean,
In favor.
Trustee Stringer,
In favor.
carried.
Thank you. The motion is carried. Moving on. 2020-2021 budget motion. that the Rainbow District School Board 2020-2021 budget be approved. Moved by Trustee Hunda, seconded by Trustee Cosmerly. And apparently, just a second, apparently there were no questions previously submitted. Shall I call the vote? Director Blazek, poll vote.
Trustee Clement,
In favor?
Trustee Dubosky,
In favor?
Trustee Dewar,
In favor?
Trustee Gibson,
Aye.
Trustee Honda,
In favor?
Trustee Cosmerly,
In favor?
Trustee Morrison,
In favor?
Trustee St. Jean,
In favor?
Trustee Stringer,
In favor.
carried.
Thank you very much. The 2020-2021 budget is approved, has been carried. September, the next item is September school opening, and I'd just like to say everyone's heard the saying that it's hard to hit a moving target. The day after our strategic planning committee, and actually several times subsequently, the province's plan to reopen schools has changed. I'd like to take a moment to call on Director Blazek to bring us up to date on the implementation of the province's plan, also known as the moving target. Director Blazek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have moved to the podium, just so you're aware of that. And so my report to you tonight is on screen, so if you can see it from there. So again, good evening, trustees. During the Strategic Planning Committee meeting on August 11, 2020, I shared the reopening plan for Rainbow Schools. As expected, you had a number of questions. One of those questions focused on the full return for in-class instruction 5 days a week in our secondary schools. This evening, I would like to provide an overview of how we arrived at this model for the delivery of education for grades 9 to 12, and more importantly, why the timetable that we presented to you is the only approved option for our students. In a nutshell, we balanced health and safety with student success and student success with health and safety, while meeting the directive for the Ministry of Education. Here's a chronology of how we arrived at where we are today. At the board meeting on July 15th, I shared an overview of the adapted models that we were exploring for our elementary schools and secondary schools. The adapted models provided a blend of in-class and at-home instruction, what we call the hybrid model of learning. On July 17th, Superintendent Judy Noble consulted with the Assistant Deputy Minister. She received initial feedback on the hybrid model, specifically defining at-home learning as well as reviewing early dismissal and at-home lunch. She noted for the first time that we needed to create a plan that represented a modified conventional return or a full return to school. We went back to the drawing board. On July 23rd, we consulted with the Assistant Deputy Minister, or the ADM, who was assigned to work with our board on options for the delivery of education during the pandemic. We shared the revised, modified full cohort return for our elementary and secondary schools. We were informed that our plans needed to include a return to school with a full cohort in class 5 days a week and an instructional day of 300 minutes. Again, we went back to the drawing board. On July 28th, the ADM reviewed and approved our plans, subject to the impending provincial directive. The provincial directive came on July 31st. The minister outlined provincial parameters for a full return to school. That's when we learned that Rainbow District School Board was deemed to be a non-designated board and must reopen its secondary schools with full cohorts in class 5 days a week. On August 3rd, we consulted with the ADM to confirm the designation and seek clarification regarding ministry expectations. we were advised to proceed with full cohorts as directed by the ministry. We shared our reopening plan with trustees and members of the public on August 11th. Based on feedback from that evening, we consulted with the ADM on August 12th to express trustee concerns. Again, we were advised to proceed with the status quo. We remain a non-designated board and, therefore, will be reopening our secondary schools with full cohorts for in-class instruction 5 days a week. The ADM reminded us that the goal of having designated board status was to reduce larger schools by half. Schools of 1,200 to 1,500 students would become schools of 600 to 750. And as you know, most of our secondary schools have fewer than 600 students. On August 13th, the Minister of Education, along with the Chief Medical Officer of Ontario, reaffirmed the province's plan to safely reopen schools. Both indicated the plan was based on sound evidence. The minister provided tools to facilitate the safe reopening of schools. Boards can now use reserves to hire more staff and to lease space to provide for greater physical distancing. Given the financial and human resources required to reduce class sizes, these are not feasible solutions. To reduce a cohort by half would result in a financial burden far exceeding our reserves. We do not have sufficient space to double the number of classrooms. We do not have a supply teacher pool large enough to facilitate such a move. On August 14th, the minister provided further direction on remote synchronous learning. He also indicated that boards can implement staggered starts in the first week of school. I will address the staggered starts at the end of this presentation. School boards not in compliance with the ministry directive were to be notified by the ADM the evening of Monday, August the 17th. Rainbow District School Board is in compliance. As stated previously, the health and safety and well-being of students and staff remains the top priority as Rainbow District School Board prepares to welcome students back to class for the 2020-2021 school year. In our presentation on August 11th, we outlined the many health and safety protocols being implemented in Rainbow schools to limit the spread of COVID-19 and manage any potential outbreaks. Health and safety protocols are outlined in the reopening guide for Rainbow schools, which is posted on the board website. Our staff will be trained on health and safety protocols during professional learning prior to the start of school. Also, as stated previously, the reopening of Rainbow schools has been directed by the Ministry of Education with guidance from Public Health. School boards do not have the authority at the local level to decide which model of delivery to implement. The decision is being made at the provincial level with input from the central command table overseeing the response to COVID-19. That input includes guidance from public health experts. Here is an overview of the Ministry of Education directive for Rainbow schools. For both elementary and secondary students, in-person school attendance will be provided for the 2020-2021 school year. To ensure parents make decisions that work for their children and family, school boards will offer remote learning for all students who choose not to attend in person. Families have the option to choose between in-person or online instruction for the 2020-2021 school year. Given that families have a choice, we have asked parents and guardians to confirm if their child or their children will be attending remote schools this fall, in person with daily face-to-face instruction or online with remote distance learning. A link to the form is posted on rainbowschools.ca. We have received upwards of over 9,000 student confirmations, and I would like to thank parents and guardians for completing the form. We hope to hear from all of our families by 1 p.m. Friday, August 21st, 2020. This is essential for planning. To date, approximately 84% of our families have opted for in-school attendance. The importance of these indicators cannot be underestimated. Staffing requirements and class sizes will be impacted by the confirmation. Once parent choice is clearly established, we will evaluate the data, then implement staffing and school organizational plans. To recap, here's what is happening in Rainbow Schools when classes resume on Tuesday, September 8, 2020, the day after Labor Day. For students in kindergarten to grade 8, elementary schools will reopen for in-class instruction 5 days a week with enhanced health and safety protocols. Students will be in one cohort for the full day, which means they will be with the same group of children throughout the school day, including recess and lunch. Elementary schools direct student contacts will be limited to approximately 50 as per the ministry guide to reopening schools. For families who choose to attend online instead of in person, as I mentioned previously, elementary students will have timetables to connect remote or synchronously with a distance learning teacher. The distance learning teacher will not be the regular classroom teacher. We will have a team of distance learning teachers who will offer remote learning for students at the elementary level. Here's what's happening for students in grades 9 to 12. Secondary schools will open with enhanced health and safety protocols. Secondary students will have a different timetable this year that is designated to limit their direct contacts to less than 100 students per week. Students will take 4 credits or subjects in the first semester. This is the same amount of credits secondary students would normally take. The timetable, however, has changed. In our efforts to balance health and safety with student success, we adjusted the timetables as follows. In week 1, students will have a 150-minute period 1 class for subject 1, followed by lunch, and a 150-minute period 2 class, subject 2, each day. In week 2, students will have 150-minute period 3 class, their subject 3, followed by lunch and a 150-minute period 4 class, subject 4. Secondary students who choose a remote learning, as I mentioned previously, will connect with the class live as it occurs in school. Synchronous learning will be delivered by the regular classroom teacher. This is very important. Secondary students who choose the online learning option will follow the timetable. So whether secondary students are learning in class or at home, the time of the class will be the same. To be clear, students must choose one or the other. A combination of remote learning and face-to-face is not possible. Here's a visual of what the timetable looks like. 2 subjects 1 week, another 2 subjects the next week, and repeat. We adopted this model because it gives students the greatest opportunity for success in their learning while reducing the number of direct contacts. It enables us to provide required prep time over a 2-week period for our secondary teachers as we meet our obligations on their collective agreement. It also enables us to easily pivot to full distance learning or home learning, or a combination of in-school, at-home learning with smaller cohorts in response to what's happening with COVID-19. Let me explain further. First and foremost, the timetable is designed to limit direct contacts to less than 100 students per week. This minimizes the risk of exposure and facilitates contact tracing. If required, all students and staff will wear masks. Students will have one transition during the school day as they move from period 1 to period 2, with lunch in between. Health and safety protocols include enhanced cleaning and disinfecting throughout the day and after school. The flow of traffic in the hallways will be controlled. Students will have 2 semesters. Students will take 4 courses per semester. This is what students are used to doing in our secondary schools. It's consistent with the past practice and familiar to students, which adds a sense of predictability and comfort. Students will have 90 days to cover course content. Academically, this is better than 45 days, which is the length of 1 semester in the quadmester model. More time equals greater opportunity to consolidate content. Greater opportunity to consolidate content equals student success. Here's what we know about our students. Last fall, we celebrated the hard work of our student and staffs on the 2018-19 EQAO Grade 9 math assessments, where 41% of students in the applied pathway and 81% of students in the academic pathway met provincial standards under optimal learning conditions. By optimal learning conditions, I mean 4 courses over 1 semester, with periods 1, 2, 3, and 4 daily. Regardless of our success, we continue to be concerned about students at risk who are unable, regardless of learning supports provided, to meet provincial standard. We can't shorten their time frame for learning when we know that we have to do better, especially under current circumstances where content consolidation from March to June may have been weak. We have to provide time to spiral the curriculum and time for spaced practice. We need to provide time for students to consolidate their understanding of curriculum content and seek help along the way. We cannot achieve this if we are motoring through the curriculum at great speed on a time crunch. We need to slow down, give students time to digest the content, to catch up, and if required, to move forward on a more measured pace. We also need to take into account what's happening over the last 6 months. Schools have been closed since mid-March. Students were required to adapt to teacher-led distance learning. From an academic perspective, we believe that 4 courses over 90 days provides the best opportunity for students to cover missed expectations from March to June, as well as learn new content. We also have summer learning loss on top of the less than ideal conditions for content consolidation of the past 6 months. As stated previously, students who are at risk need time to consolidate missed learning and new learning through spaced practice and a spiraled curriculum. From an academic perspective, we know that alternate weeks with full in-class instruction is better than alternating over 2 weeks with a blend of in-class instruction and at-home learning. Content can easily be forgotten when students are not in front of a teacher in class. Alternate weeks with subjects 1 and 2 in week 1 and subjects 3 and 4 in week 2 is the better option to minimize learning loss. In adopting the 2-week or 10-day cycle, we also took the staffing into consideration. Our current secondary model allows for staff to have prep time recovered over a 2-week period. Other models would see some teachers go without prep time for 1/4 of a school year. With the ministry requirement to pivot, the model we have adopted reduces instances of preparation time not received or instructional time not provided. This cannot be easily achieved in a model with 4 semesters and 2 courses per semester, or what is known as the quadmester. In our secondary model, should we have to shift to a blend of in-class and at-home learning or full distance learning, all of our students can remain with their class and their cohort. The 5-day model in elementary schools allows parents and guardians who choose in-person learning to have a consistent schedule each week to plan for any childcare needs due to work schedules. The ministry requirement for full-day synchronous learning for our secondary students who choose to learn at home instead of in school can be achieved within our secondary model. By connecting directly with their classroom teachers online, students can maintain their timetable and learn with their class. This is the closest we can come to in replicating the school experience. Given our numbers and the requirement to be able to pivot, a virtual school would not be able to replicate each student's timetable due to the various grades, pathways, and electives in all of our schools. This would be very problematic in a situation where a student wishes to return at midterm or switch to remote learning after the school year starts. It would also be challenging where a school or a school board may be required to pivot a different learning model as a result of COVID-19. I would now like to focus on special education. Students with significant special needs are in intensive support classrooms with under 15 students, and they will attend for full days, 5 days per week. Students who struggle with mental health will benefit from attending school daily. Special education support services will be available for students attending face-to-face as well as students who attend through distance learning. Individual education plans, or IEPs, will contain strategies that work in the classroom, as well as at home through distance learning in the event of those opting out of face-to-face and in the event of school closures. Attending school 5 days per week allows students with special needs the opportunity to become more familiar with routines and procedures, as well as giving them more regular opportunity for social interaction. A full day of school 5 days per week will alleviate the need for many parents to require childcare and/or respite services. We are prepared to pivot. Over the past few months, we purchased 3,100 Chromebooks and 360 iPads. Just a reminder, all Rainbow District School Board students that currently have a device will retain them until recalled by their and given notice by their principal. I would also like to focus on school ventilation. For school start up on September 8th, all HVAC systems will be inspected and repaired as required to ensure the equipment is fully functional. New filters will be installed in all units. Building automation systems will run longer hours to increase the amount of fresh air intake. We will research upgrading to different filters and will increase the frequency of filter changes from the current 6 months to 3 months. In the short term, move in as quickly as possible. We will acquire and install ventilation units to provide classroom-based ventilation solutions in some schools. In the medium term, again from September to August 2021, we will prioritize school ventilation projects in our capital plans. We are recommending staggered starts for the first week of school to ease the transition for our staff, our students, and their families. Starting with smaller groups of students and building to full attendance as the week progresses, will enable us to be more responsive as we implement health and safety practices. We'll be able to adjust as we go along, particularly in the area of pickup and drop-off and movement throughout the school, including washroom breaks and lunch periods. I would like to end this presentation with an update on how we're putting health and safety protocols into operation. Personal protective equipment, otherwise known as PPEs. All schools will receive a supply of PPE for staff by September 1st. This includes medical masks, face shields, and where necessary, gloves and gowns. Sanitizing supplies. Each classroom will have a supply of hand sanitizer and sanitizing wipes. Wall-mounted sanitizers will be installed at entrances and elevators. Additional cleaners. Our current workforce will increase by 5.3 FTE cleaners, which represents an addition of 212 hours of cleaning per week. Let me end where I began, with health and safety, our first and foremost priority. Let me be clear. No one strategy eliminates the risk of contracting COVID-19. All of the steps we have put in place, however, layered on top of one another, serve as an effective buffer. If I may paraphrase our local medical officer, Dr. Penny Sutcliffe, who shared her perspective through the media this past weekend. Best practices implemented by parents, the community, staff, and students provide the most effective protection to reduce the risks associated with the virus. Consistently implementing these best practices, such as cough, sneezing etiquette, wearing masks, staying home when ill, washing and sanitizing our hands, respecting physical distancing, conducting self-screening every day, and testing as required. These will go a long way in keeping everyone safe. Remember, we're in this together. We must continue to take collective action for the greater good of the whole. By implementing all of the practices, we put our students and our staff in a safe environment so they may return to school with confidence. Our school reopening plan is compliant with the ministry directive. Our plan has been vetted and approved by Public Health. Ministry of Labor has reviewed our protocols, and over 9,000 student confirmations have been submitted. Almost 84% have indicated a return to face-to-face. Training MPD are scheduled for tomorrow for kindergarten camp and the summer transition programs, as well as training will take place September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd for all staff. Our collective and shared responsibility for ensuring a safe start is strong. We work extremely well with Public Health, and through our partnership, we have the ability and the resolve to effectively manage the opening of our schools. The ministry has given us the ability to adapt and pivot based on their direction and guidance from Public Health. And this brings the presentation to a close. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I'm going to wait till the screen comes on so I can see people. There you go. Okay. Who has their hand up, please? I have Trustee Morrison and Trustee Cosmerly. That's it. Trustee Gibson. Trustee Stringer. Okay, Trustee Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Director Blasek. First of all, Director Blasek, to you and all the staff at all levels, actually, our executive team who hasn't stopped working, have not had any time off, have been actually had to shift on a pivot, as the word is now, on a dime on March 12th, and ensure our whole system pivoted to a distance learning mode. Then had to prepare for re-entry to school with a whole lot of moving targets that were established by the ministry on what reopening schools was going to look like. So I really wanted to thank them at all levels for all the tremendous work that has been done. And I'm talking, of course, our leadership, our executive team, but also our principals, teachers, EAs, support workers, secretaries, everybody that's been involved in this. This has been a tremendous change in the way they've always done things, and they've responded on behalf of our students. And I wanted to just make a statement to thank them for that. And I want them to know they have our full support going forward into the coming year. Now, Norm, in terms of questions, I had a whole page of questions, but many of them you've already answered as part of your presentation. Particularly, I have a couple of specific things I wondered, though. You mentioned all staff attending the health and safety PD sessions. I just want to make sure that that's truly all staff. So it's not just teaching or EA or staff that is going to be in classrooms. It's custodial staff. It's all board staff are going to get training on the health and safety measures. Just wanted to confirm that, Norm.
Yeah, not only permanent staff, all permanent staff, but also the occasional staff that have to participate going forward.
Thank you. So when they're called into schools, they will have had that training.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. And the other thing that I had, and I'll pass it back to you, Madam Chair, but the other question I have is not directly related to our board. It's a corollary issue, but really is essential as a society as we move forward dealing with this COVID. Any word, Norm, on testing? The Premier at one point, and I lose track of time, it was either a May or June press conference, he said publicly that there was going to be testing of all students and all staff before they re-entered school. We've heard nothing of that since. I don't think there's the capacity to do that. I don't think that's a commitment that is being met. But what I wondered is, do we have any news on point of contact testing or screening testing that will be available sometime over the course of this year, I'm assuming? And is that being pursued with vigor at the ministry level to make sure that that's available to the boards or through the public health units? Just wondered if you know the status of testing, particularly rapid point of service testing.
Yes. To date, we have been given no indication that that sort of testing will be happening. Currently, what we do have is self-screen assessments. Self-screening assessments are to occur prior to each day. When a parent sends their child to school, they're to review what the criteria is to make sure they check that list off. If there is a suspicion and there is an illness that is thought that could be COVID related, we will be, of course, recognizing that public health does the screening, and it will be up to them whether they want to do the follow through with the testing format. But at this time, the ministry has not given us any direction as to direct testing.
Thank you. One supplementary comment, Madam Chair, if I could. The fact that again, I take, I'm relieved a bit. Again, I'm referring to our low infection rates in Sudbury, and the fact that given the very low numbers that we have in the community that we cover, so Sudbury, Espanola, and Manitoulin, I would assume, Norm, that the health unit has indicated they have the capacity to do things like when cases are identified to actually do the contact tracing to make sure they're isolated and that all their contacts over the previous 14 days are also notified. and are able to self-quarantine, because as we discussed previously, and I was glad to see that Penny Sutcliffe said somewhat of the same thing, our biggest safety measure here is to keep the virus out of our community. Secondly, all the other things that we're doing in the schools are overlay measures, and all of them play a part of it. But the biggest thing we need to do as a community is to keep this out of our community. And one of the ways we do that, of course, is by the way we all deal with each other as caring, concerned, civilized citizens to each other. So I'm looking forward to the community working together to make sure that we keep our schools open and we keep our students and staff safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Cosmerly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any questions. This was very complete. And I just, as with Trustee Morrison, I just wanted to commend all of you who have been working so hard at the board to put a plan in place when the lines keep shifting all of the time. It's we are a moving target, and we're moving into something. It's like the great unknown. But you have done a really good job on this plan, and I think it just looking at the numbers of people who have said they're sending their kids back to school, it shows to me anyway that the community has confidence in what we're doing, and I wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Trustee Cosmerly. Trustee Gibson.
Thank you, Chair Dewar. Just first off, through you to Superintendent Bazinet or Director Blazek, is that then the extent of the HVAC update, the part that was covered there by Director Blazek, or is there further information coming?
Through you, Madam Chair. I'll just refer back to the previous meeting. At the previous meeting, I had committed to bringing information to the board, 2 reports actually, for September 1st. One was related to the COVID-19 expenses incurred in the current fiscal year, and the second part of that was related to the ventilation systems. So the update that has been provided this evening by the director is the update. However, through you, Madam Chair, I think as we look towards our September 1st meeting, and we do have agenda settings set for tomorrow, I'm looking for a bit of direction as to expectations on level of detail. And so I'm looking or seeking some input from the Board of Trustees as to, is the Board of Trustees looking for a presentation whereby I would go through each and every of school and provide details? Or are you looking for overall high-level summary? I guess I'm looking for a little bit of guidance at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'd like to start off by stating that I'm a little bit.
So which of those 2? Sorry. So were you going to respond to the 2? Either should we take a look at whether you want the overhead, the high level, or whether you want more detail in his report?
Oh, well, just at the moment, I had some questions based on the presentation in front of us. So I just wanted to know if that was information or if there was more coming before I made my comments and questions.
Okay, I misunderstood. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, yes, I would definitely like to clarify what Superintendent Bazinet just stated, but perhaps once we finished with this presentation. So it would have been nice to have received a copy of this presentation ahead of time, and to be able to go through some of the information in there and prepare questions. But I'll do the best with the questions that I already had, and just now seeing that presentation, which did have a lot of information in it. So thank you for that. Over the past week, there's been several opportunities in local media where the director has interacted with local media and answered questions about the plan. And I guess I'm just a little bit concerned over the lack of consistency. So, for example, at the beginning of this presentation, and I don't have it in front of me, so I'm just going on memory, the director mentioned something about it just being unrealistic to double the amount of space and double the amount of teachers because of the cost involved. But in an interview that I heard on local media, the director was quite clear that it was really only 5 or 6 schools where there's a problem in terms of being at full capacity and not being able to perhaps utilize space that's already available in the school. So was any costing done looking at seeking space and extra teachers just for those 5 or 6 schools? That, because obviously that wouldn't be the same cost as providing that everywhere. It seems that we have some schools that will naturally be able to provide smaller cohorts just because they have extra space and perhaps low enrollment, and then we have others that are packed to the rafters. So we're talking about it as obviously a whole school board approach, but the planning happens at an individual school level. And I'm getting numerous inquiries from parents and grandparents who want that information to be able to make the decision about their child's school. And I'm also one of those parents. I have a decision to make myself about 2 schools and 2 students. And we're halfway through the time period. We're now facing the deadline to make that decision for our children. And here we are another week later and we still don't have the information. And I appreciate that Superintendent Bazinet's looking for direction. But my understanding was at the Committee of the Whole meeting last week that we had these discussions, and then there were further emails that went out in the week asking for this information, even asking the director to answer, but there was just no response. And now we have this presentation which covers some of the information, but frankly doesn't cover a lot of it.
Excuse me, Trustee Gibson. There was no committee of the whole meeting last week. Please, there was no committee of the whole meeting. There was a strategic planning committee meeting. That's
I agree that is correct. And
excuse me, Trustee Gibson. Could you repeat? Could you give us the question, please?
Yeah, well, when is that other information going to be available? Because we have a deadline.
Okay, thank you. Director Blazik, or would you like to answer when is there?
So I would like to add some context. I would like to add some context, and I think when we speak about when we talk about staffing, when we talk about space, and those are tools that the ministry introduced last week. And when we talk in the context of those, and we're looking at a reduced cohort. So what he means by that, if we were to apply say a reduction by half of the cohort at every single school, there is no way we could implement that board-wide. It would just be untenable in terms of the resources. We wouldn't have enough teachers. We wouldn't have enough space. So when we talk about space, you're absolutely right. There are only 5 or 6 schools that actually have some space pressures. But again, if those space pressures can be accommodated in terms of moving classrooms around, that will be fine. And the reason why I say we can, it's based on the information that we'll receive once those 13,500 parents commit. We can't make decisions prior to that, because we don't have the information or the data that is necessary for us to make those reorgs. So it's really important that parents make the decision based on the plan that we put forward. Once we receive that information, come next Monday and Tuesday, we'll be looking at the plan in terms of, okay, what are the intentions of parents? That will determine our next steps. We can delve into hypotheticals, but right now those aren't realistic because we need real numbers, because that's what's going to drive the reorgs, the staffing for distance learning, the staffing for in-school, and of course the reorgs that typically happen between September 8th and the 3rd week of September. So there's lots of unknowns, there's no question. And there is a lot of anxiety, and I understand it from a parent's perspective, but based on what we provided, that's the information we have to go by.
Further question, Trustee Gibson.
Just a question for you, Chair Dewar, if you don't mind, regarding your last statement. So when all board members meet for a committee meeting, you're saying that's not a committee of the whole meeting? Just so I understand. confused.
No, it is not. We call a committee of the whole meeting a regular board meeting. A regular meeting of the committee of the whole. But no, you have received in your package, you have it in your policies, you have a list of 10 different committees. Strategic planning is on them. It's right there. It has a mandate. It has everything on it. So that's the meeting that we had last week. Okay? Further question? Further questions, Trustee Gibson?
I do have a lot of other questions, but I'll let somebody else ask. If I see people with their hands up, I don't want to monopolize all the time. So thank you.
We can go around a second time. Thank you very much, Trustee Gibson. Trustee Stringer is next. Margaret, are you there?
Chair. Through you to Superintendent Blazek. Thank you for that Director Blazek, excuse me. Thank you for that very thoughtful presentation. It was thoughtful and thorough, and I particularly appreciated the comparison of our plan with Quadmasters. Initially, when I looked at Quadmasters, they seemed very appealing because students wouldn't be with more than one group for 9 weeks. But seeing how they would impact students who say they were sick for 1 week of their 9-week program, that would be devastating for them. I also appreciate the extent to which our plan layers preventative strategies. Mostly you answered my questions, Director Blazek, but I do remain concerned about the province's lack of concern for distancing on buses and in classrooms. I don't know why the province didn't require masks for all students. If students in K-3 wore masks, would that not be a large factor in improving student health and well-being from what you know coming from Sudbury District Health Unit?
So, Madam Chair, if I will, I won't play the expert role here in terms of a medical or advocate. But I will say that any measure that you add, whether it's from JK to 3 or JK to grade 12, if there's a measure that's in place to help accentuate the response or creating a buffer, I'm certainly I think we should explore that. So if you're suggesting that masks should be worn from K to 3, I would suggest yes. I think that's a reasonable expectation. I think that if we teach children over time, they will learn to do it on a daily basis. So I like the idea, and I don't see why they couldn't adapt over time to wearing it on a daily basis.
Follow up, please, Madam Chair.
Yes.
So
yes.
With that in mind, I would like to have a new motion considered. That motion would state, be it resolved that all students K to 12 wear masks. It might add in K to 12 in Rainbow schools wear masks.
Are you moving that motion?
Yes, I am, please.
We require a seconder. I second the motion. Trustee Cosmerly?
Yes, to allow for discussion.
Good. Okay. Seconded by Trustee Cosmerly. Discussion? Comments? Trustee Gibson and then Trustee Morrison.
Thank you. Can we have a written copy of the motion up on the screen, please?
I don't know how to do that. Be it resolved that all students in K to 12 in Rainbow District schools wear masks at school.
Thank you.
I don't know if we can do that. Do we have that capability, Director Blazek?
No, we don't.
No, sorry. Be it resolved that all students in K to 12 in Rainbow District schools wear masks at school. I have Anybody else? Trustee Morrison, of course. Please, Trustee Morrison.
Okay. I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I was looking at the mover. I think she wanted to speak to it first, but
Oh, she does. All right. Would you?
I'll defer to the mover and then come back to you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Stringer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The province's plan for reopening schools strongly encourages mask wearing in kindergarten to grade 3, but it doesn't require it. Recent studies suggest that young children transmit COVID-19 efficiently and may be major drivers of the pandemic. For example, as published July 31st, 2020 in JAMA, the Journal of American Medical Associations, the Chicago Pediatric Hospital study found that children aged 5 and younger are likely to have mild or moderate symptoms, yet have up to 100 times as much virus in their throat and nasal passages as adults. The study also found that children aged 5 to 17 had as much virus as adults. Another extensive contract tracing study in Italy found that young children were less likely to become ill than adults, but those younger than age 14 were twice as likely as adults to transmit the disease. In short, children are less likely than adults to become symptomatic, but are more likely than adults to transmit the disease. The Waterloo Regional District School Board recently passed a motion requiring masks for all students from K to 12, as have public and Catholic boards in Calgary. I have more information that I'd be happy to share if there are questions, but I would like to recommend that we adopt a similarly cautious approach in our schools.
Thank you very much. Trustee Morrison now. You don't have your,
I got it. Thank you. Just again, it's we're all interested in safety and knowing that the layering of preventive measures are what is going to keep our students and staff safe. I'm certainly one that would be encouraging kids, certainly from JK to 3, even though they're not part of the mandatory group right now, to be wearing masks. I'm not so sure that I'm in a position to decide medically whether or not they must wear one, because when you say must, then it's if they don't, or if they don't, then they can't attend school. And I'm not sure I'm in a position to judge that medically. So I'm just sharing my own discomfort with a medical directive that I don't have the background to know whether that's a good idea or not. So if trustees want to consider that, I would hope that we would defer actually voting on this motion till we've had the opportunity to get advice from the public health unit. So that's my comment.
Thank you very much, Trustee Cosmerly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to support what Trustee Morrison just said. I too, I'm torn with this. I see issues with trying to get little guys to wear a mask all day long. It's one thing to wear a mask when you're going with your parents to a store for a few minutes. It's another to be wearing a mask all day. I like the idea of encouraging. And I would support if we amended the motion about encouraging them to wear it until we had direction from the health unit. I know some other boards have have voted to have all students from kindergarten to grade 12 wear masks. Yeah, I just feel very uncomfortable with the wording as well, even though I'm a seconder. Sorry. Thank you.
That's good. That's fine. Trustee Stringer, and then Trustee Gibson, and then Trustee Clement.
Madam Chair, I think if you could add me at the end, I'll ask and comment more at that time. I'll let you.
Thank you. Thank you. Trustee Gibson.
Thank you, Chair Dewar. I would agree with the comments that I heard from Trustee Morrison in terms of the medical expertise. I certainly think those are very valid comments. My other concern is that we as a board, I think it was very clear, I think it's 2 meetings ago now, that we had not ordered any supplies for students, that the only supplies we had ordered were for staff. I foresee, especially with the younger children, masks being dropped or soiled or what have you. And is there going to be a plan in place, especially if we were to implement something like this, to provide masks for students if they require one? And then secondly, just regarding the sort of idea of this motion, just if I could get some clarity from the Director of Education, I think, who would be directed to. Obviously, this is an operational plan that's been formulated by the executive team. And as trustees, we entrust the day-to-day running of the schools to them. So with this motion, are we saying that the guidelines sent out by the Ministry of Education are like a baseline or a minimum, and that by motion we can keep adding things to the plan? Because that's kind of what this looks like to me. So can I get some clarity around that?
So in regard to this, I would see it as an enhancement, but that enhancement, I agree with everybody else, that I think we need to clarify it with the public health to see if it's feasible, to see if it's appropriate. I personally would like to see, but I would like to hear what they would have to say first. So I think it's a great idea to have their input.
Thank you. And supplementary, if I may, is there a reason then that it's come to us through a motion from a trustee? Why was this not suggested as a part of the plan if it's something that you think would be quite important?
You might recall that I've said even on one of the radio broadcasts that I think I would encourage all students to wear the masks. So I'm quite comfortable with that philosophy. It's the mandatory piece, and I think you guys hit the nail on the head. And also ensuring that, is there a medical challenge associated with wearing a mask all day for those students ages 3.8 to grade 3. So that's something we'd have to hear about. And once we get that information, I'd gladly share it, and we can move from there.
Okay, thank you.
And would you clarify something for me, Director Blazek? It doesn't have to do with this motion, but it came out of a question that was asked. Do we have extra masks in all our schools for our students if they drop or lose or crinkle or?
So good question. We don't have masks for every single child, obviously, and that's why the ministry has made it a mandate that parents supply them. But we do have masks. If a child forgets or loses or soils them for whatever reason, we do have masks that will fill in for an interim basis.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that clarification. Trustee Clement.
Madam Chair, through you, I'm going to go with Dina's comments. If I could, I'd bubble wrap every child to be safe. But there's a reason the younger grades aren't required to wear a mask, because I've heard from teachers and comments on Facebook from other teachers that it would be almost impossible. I hate to say that it would be, let's say, a must. I'd make it a suggestion that if a child or a parent wants to try and get their child to wear a mask would be a good thing. But to say if that child absolutely doesn't want to wear a mask or whatever, what do you do then? Kick them out? So I'd like to hear from the public education. I like the idea that it would be an option for students to all wear masks, but to say it's a hard fact, I find that hard to accept. Thank you.
Trustee Gibson, and then Trustee Stringer, I'll give you the last word.
Thank you. I was just thinking that, so I just want to clarify my understanding. On buses, all students will be required to wear masks. Is that correct? During the busing portion of the day?
My understanding, they'll all be requested to wear a mask.
Thank you. So supplementary, if I may. So then I'm seeing the same problem that Trustee Clement just mentioned. I'm assuming then that won't be enforced or even monitored, because who would be monitoring it on the bus? The driver is obviously watching the road. So that's more of a hope that everyone on the bus wears a mask. And what was the medical, reasoning for that was just because there's no social distancing?
I can't speak for the transportation side of things, but I know that I share the same concerns you do. I don't know how that's going to be operationalized in terms of making sure that students are compliant. What I will tell you, though, in the school, that if a child does not have a mask, they have to have an exemption form of some kind, and it must be verified and reported to the principal, and the principal must agree to it, because there has to be a rationale behind it. So it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds, because like you, I agree that it's going to be problematic on buses for the monitoring.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Stringer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's definitely a problem on buses in our student ability to physically distance. We all know that even as adults, that wearing a mask can be difficult. It can be extremely difficult, and it will be challenging for students in grade 4, 5, 6, and on up. There's no doubt about that. I'm happy to defer the motion to hear what our public health, Sudbury District Health has to say about it. I wondered if I could share some information with folks in a question that was posed during Ottawa Carleton's interview on CTV News with Dr. Sharkaway, who's a infectious disease doctor, and he's an infectious disease specialist. And these questions were posed from parents to him. And one of the questions was, should masks be mandatory in all classes? At your pleasure, may I share some of that information without trying to make it long? Just as an information.
As long as it's not too long.
Okay. He says it's a consideration that should be strongly suggested. And I'm in the opinion that we probably have overthought the idea of the challenge that this will bring to kids, particularly younger ones. There's all kinds of hand-wringing and consternation expressed about the likelihood that kids won't tolerate masks, that they'll be tugging at them and wearing them inappropriately, that they won't know how to care for them properly, and will be constantly contaminating them. I'm not sure where this comes out of other than sheer speculation and conjecture. From my own personal experience with my own children wearing masks, and they range in age from 4 to 9, they don't mind wearing their masks. They've gotten used to them and enjoy wearing them because they've got colorful designs on them. They think masks are cool. They've been taught how to take their mask off without making a mess on their face and contaminating them. They've been taught to put their masks away in a plastic bag that they can seal when they need to take it off for periods of time. To suggest that kids can't be taught how to do this and they can't be guided by school teachers and other staff within a school environment is a bit silly. It's not going to be 100% wrinkle-free, but I think it's more than possible.
Okay, I would appreciate that, Trustee Springer. You put a motion on the floor to defer?
I'm happy to defer to our next meeting and information from Sudbury District Health Unit.
Moved by Margaret Stringer that the motion be deferred to the next meeting. Do we have a seconder? Trustee Morrison? Can I call the question? Director Blazik, I guess you have to call it. Poll vote. We're only voting on the motion to defer.
Right.
Director Blazik?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry about that. Trustee Clement?
I thought you had gone home.
Trustee Clement?
In favor.
Trustee Dubosky? I believe she's to leave us. Trustee
Dubosky has had to.
Thank you. Trustee Dewar?
In favor.
Trustee Gibson?
Thank you. Could I just clarify, this is being deferred until the next regular board meeting? Is that correct?
Thank you. That is a good point, Trustee Gibson. Thank you very much. We should have included the date, the next board meeting, or the phrase. We will include that if that's,
I think you did.
but we've definitely done it, yeah.
Okay, and it's September 1st, yes?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, so in favor.
Thank you. Trustee Hunda,
In favor?
Trustee Cosmerly,
In favor?
Trustee Morrison,
In favor?
Trustee St. Jean,
In favor.
Trustee Stringer.
In favor.
Carried.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I think I've gone through the list of everybody who had questions. Did you want to ask any further questions, Trustee Gibson? I promised that I would go back and see if there was anything that you would like to ask before we move on to the motions under this heading.
No, I can ask my questions when under those motions, but I don't know when you wanted to deal with Superintendent Bazinet's request for clarification, perhaps after the motions or?
Oh, yeah, well, I had wanted to deal with it immediately, but anyway, so I'm not quite sure even how we deal with it. Did you want to make a motion, Trustee Gibson, or did you want to?
I'm happy to wait after the discussion of the two motions, and there's still time during either after that or during remarks. Yeah.
During trustee remarks, I would suggest, Madam Chair.
Yeah, there's the perfect spot. Thank you, Trustee Morrison, for your help there. Okay, so we'll move on to the motion. Motion 1. That the board write a letter to the Minister of Education to advise of our deep concern that its planning for the reopening of schools in September does not adequately provide for a safe reopening as recommended by the Strategic Planning Committee. I actually, it should stop for a safe reopening. We don't need the as recommended by the committee. So moved by Trustee Stringer, seconded by Trustee Cosmerly. Discussion, questions? Trustee Stringer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to have trustees consider an amended version to this original. And the amended version reads as follows: that the board write a letter to the Minister of Education to advise of our deep concern that its plan for reopening schools in September, and all of that is the same as the original motion, and this is where it changes, has placed challenging expectations on boards in regards to optimal physical distancing in classrooms and on buses.
The amendment is moved by Trustee Stringer. Do we have a seconder? Do we have a Trustee Clement was the first one I saw that put up his hand. And we're gonna read it many times. So, has placed challenging expectations on boards in regards to ensuring
in regards to optimal physical distancing. In regards to optimal physical distancing in classrooms and on buses, and to request that the minister provide additional new funding to achieve these expectations. Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Trustee Morrison.
In principle and philosophically, of course, I fully support. What I am struggling with is when we talk about, I don't think there's enough money in the province to actually achieve, for example, I just look at our budget. We have a $200 million budget, roughly. $150 million of that is on wages and benefits for staff. Even if we assume we didn't have to double our staff, that maybe we needed 1/3 more if we were able to have the space to move our kids around into to ensure physical distancing in classes of 15 or less, for example. Even if we needed 1/3 more, even if we had the space available and it cost us nothing because we found it in our schools or in the community, even to hire 1/3 more would be $50 million just for our board. There is not enough money in the province to provide that. We are 1% of the student population in the province of Ontario. We spend $150 million on our staff right now. If it required $50 million more for us to be able to have class sizes of 15, and I don't know what that number would be, Margaret, because I think I think Rainbow operates, of course, we meet our average class size. Most of our classes, I think, we're operating at around 21-to-1 ratios in the last couple of years. And so with the increase, because of the increase directive from the province, the average class size is going to be closer to 23. But we're still talking 23 as an average class size system-wide. We already know we have pressure points in some schools and not in others, as been indicated by several of the other trustees. That's absolutely right. We've got schools that are smaller with low enrollment that have larger classrooms or larger hallways or gyms that don't necessarily have to be used for phys ed all the time, but we can spread out students. We have other schools that are packed. We won't even know where the pressure points are until all those survey results are in on Friday. And then staff have the opportunity to start looking at it school by school, classroom by classroom within those schools. So there's a whole lot of unknowns. So I'm just sharing this because I'm personally struggling because I want to support this. I support a generalized letter of concern, but I don't think we should set an expectation with our public either, that there's not enough money in the province to fully set up classrooms at 15 students right across Ontario. There just isn't. And I wanted to give a real life example of, we have a budget of $200 million, $150 million of which goes to salaries and benefits. So even if we didn't have to double the staff and needed another 150, even if we only needed 1/3 more, that's $50 million just for our board. So you multiply that in the boards that are really struggling right now, like Ottawa, Toronto, and Hamilton, who are designated boards and still haven't got a plan approved and are going to have to start their survey process all over again. And it's kind of mind-boggling. So I'm just sharing my thoughts as I struggle with this because I certainly want to agree. Philosophically, I want to agree, and I understand the concept of making a statement. But on a practical basis, I just don't want to set up, again, unrealistic expectations with our public, as I felt really were set up last Thursday by the announcement from the Premier and the Minister, which basically, they're indicating that we're all sitting on all this free money and then we're going to be able to address that. That's not happening. Not only do we not have the space or the teachers, we don't have enough money in reserves, of course, to even touch that. It would require, as I said, about $50 million just in our case, assuming that there were teachers available in the community that we could hire. So that's my thought, and my head keeps going around on this issue, Margaret. So please don't, I hope you don't interpret that as lack of support. It's just the thinking process. Thank you.
I'm going to allow you to speak again, Margaret, but I need to allow others first, okay? Trustee Cosmerly and then Trustee Gibson. I believe I saw your hand up. Did I? Trustee Gibson and Trustee Clement. Thank you very much. Trustee Cosmerly, you're next.
Just quickly, I too, like Trustee Morrison, support a broad statement being presented to the ministry indicating our concerns across the province with its plan for the reopening of schools. My big concern is the busing. My issue with us talking about the physical distancing is the fact that the ministry did tell boards or allow boards that they can use the reserves. So if we say something about providing new funding, I can see them turning right around and saying, we've done that. We've allowed you to use money that you've got in your reserves. We've done our bit. Now, Whether I agree with that piece is a whole other conversation. But the fact is, they've made that decision. So if we say give new money, they're going to say we've already given you money to address it. So why would you say to us request new money? So I have a real issue with that part. But on a general basis, I would support a general basis to raise concerns with the plan that the ministry proposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Cosmerly. Trustee Gibson.
Thank you, Chair Dewar. I would agree that it's a quandary in terms of what is possible and what's not possible. So I think we've focused on what's not possible, which is, halving the cohorts. So I guess what I'm looking for from staff is what is possible? What do we have available to spend? If we did spend the maximum that the province has announced we can spend as of last week, what can we get with that money? What can we do? Maybe that would be the Superintendent Bazinet, maybe the Director. I would like to know what's possible.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's Superintendent Bazinet. Subsequent to the announcement by the Ministry about allowing boards to use reserves, and originally in the original B memo it was 1%, and it subsequently got changed to 2%. And that's a calculated value. So they did release a table board by board, and for us, the 2% represents just over $3.7 million. And if we use $100,000 per full-time teacher, basically every $1 million gets you 10 teachers.
And supplementary, if I may, the amount of 3.7 million is available to be, what is perhaps you could just run through what the numbers are for our accumulated reserve and the student focused initiative reserve. Where does that leave us? Does that clear out the account? Do we still have reserves if we did take advantage and spend that $3.7 million?
Through you, Madam Chair, the last report that came to the board was at revised budget, and I think it's only prudent to use that value. And when the ministry speaks of reserves, it's speaking only on the accumulated surplus that has not been appropriated already. So when we look at the value at the revised estimates, it was estimated that our reserve would be $6.9 million. So therefore, the 3.7 can be covered by that amount.
And that amount, Superintendent Bazinet, that amount was provided by the ministry. Right.
Correct. The calculated amount that we've received from the ministry is $3.7 million, which is a calculated amount to represent 2% of our operating budget.
So that's the ministry's numbers, just to clarify. Okay. Trustee Clement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment. In the motion, I really don't want to see, yes, I would love to send something to the ministry about a huge complaint and stuff like that, but I don't want to tear away from all the work that our staff has done and put a negative tone on the safety of the schools, just to then have parents and students get even more worried that we're not doing the right thing. We're doing everything we can according to public health and everything else. So I really don't know where to go with this. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Trustee Clement. Trustee Stringer, I have you next, but I also have Trustee Cosmerly again, and I have, you know what? I'm going to call on Trustee Hunda. Trustee Hunda, you haven't had an opportunity to speak yet. would you please go ahead? You have to turn
Yeah.
your,
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm really struggling with this too. And I think we're all sharing the same frustration that all this work, all this attention, particularly on our staff, all the stress amongst all of us, this is like an ongoing nightmare because whatever we might decide today or like today could change tomorrow. And I don't think the reality is we're never going to make everything all really, really safe. And I think all we can do is our best. I have concerns, like a number of concerns. One is having been around for a very long time and having seen different governments come and go and have lived through governments coming in and clawing back reserves and when we don't have any, and what it's like to try to run a board when you don't have reserves. So I guess I have a major question on what could, I know it would be impossible to predict, but like what could be the most serious cost of having depleted like our reserves, because in a lot of ways we're counting on these reserves in a lot of ways to continue with, like, year after year we don't know what our fundings are. This year they were very, very late. We have to understand we would have no reserves to perhaps carry on the funding of some very important programs that we were all talking about. Mental health. Well, there is one. Like, what would be the cost of totally depleting? I'm not really asking a question. I'm stating my concern because I don't think it's fair. I don't think anyone's had the opportunity to be able to answer that. But to me, I'm very concerned about what would be the serious costs going on if we deplete all our reserves. But then that brings us to the question: if we chose to do that, as suggested, where would we put that? The fact of the matter, this money is not going to buy us space. It might buy us rental space somewhere, but if it pays for rental space, it's not paying for the extra teaching staff. And do we even have the teachers available? I don't know. So I'm kind of like really, really struggling with this. I am, like probably most of you, but I'm not afraid to admit I am absolutely scared to death about this whole thing, particularly how it's going to affect my own family. I don't know what the right answer is. I, like everyone else, worry about busing, but we can't take money out of the reserves and help with busing. Lucian Brothers, realistically, or I'm just picking them, are not going to go and buy a whole set of a fleet of buses. Like, I just don't see where this is going to help us in any way. I think they've made it very clear what they're expecting. I'm trying to save my conscience by blaming it all on them and being glad that I don't have to vote for this, because I find this, I think that this motion isn't specific enough, or I would rather it not be so specific, I guess is more what I'm trying to say.
okay. I'm gonna ask you, I thank you very much, because I think you've stated what a lot of us are feeling. Can I move along here and ask? Did you have a question? Pardon? No? I can't hear you. Your mic is off.
I'm trying to catch it. No, that's good. That's fine.
Okay, thank you very much, Trustee Honda. Trustee Stringer, and then I have Trustee Cosmerly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the money in our reserves is not sufficient to begin to address the issue of physical distancing. New dollars from the province are what is needed, not reserves. Various estimates suggest about $3 billion for the whole province. The province had, in terms of supporting hospitals, put in $3 billion, and yet for education, it was $309 million. I'm not looking for a specific number of 15 students in a class or 20. I'm just saying that this is something that the province needs to be doing. I do have a couple other written statements I'd like to share with your indulgence.
Very, very quickly, please.
I want to be very clear that this is a provincial issue. Why isn't the province adhering to the report from Sick Kids that outlines the importance of physical distancing in classrooms? Why is this government not acknowledging the report from Ontario Principal Council that recommends all elementary and secondary schools, including in non-designated boards, be limited to a class size that ensures 2 meters of physical distancing? As well, all kindergarten classes should be capped at 15 students, as recommended by the Ontario Principals Council. I know that our administration is doing an outstanding job of layering strategies to do the very best they can to address the safety of our students. Minister Lecce needs to do better. Parents need to know that our government has done everything possible to protect children and families. Planning for the reopening of school this way has been extremely challenging for our boards, given the limited resources that we've been given by the province, the organizational restrictions that the province has imposed, and the last-minute changes and refusals of school board plans. An example of this is just recently, Toronto District School Board and Ottawa Carleton School Board had a plan to reduce the school day by 48 minutes so that they could use prep teachers to reduce class sizes. Minister Lecce refused these boards. Many boards yesterday and today have had their plans refused. School starts in 3 weeks, and our administration is to be applauded for their persevering spirit in looking at all avenues to ensure our students have the best possible start. And that's everything I have to say. Thank you.
And I thank you very much. I have Trustee Morrison.
I'll try
You
to.
had,
Yes,
I had Trustee Cosmerly, but you took your hand down. Is that correct? Okay, thank you, Trustee Morrison.
and again, I appreciate all the research that Trustee Stringer has done on this for sure. So thank you, Margaret. I'm hoping that if we do end up with a letter, that we do include something about we object to the fact that it's not new funding to call, giving us an okay to tap into reserves. So I have a big problem with that and that part of that announcement on Thursday. But I do have a question through you, Madam Chair, to either the director or to the superintendent of business. If we have approximately $3.7 million that we could access to address some of our concerns, is our executive council going to be looking at possibly drawing from the reserve and to do what, I guess, is what I'm looking at. Some of this you won't know the answers to, of course, until we know the final survey results, as I continue to say, and we know then what the enrollment levels, in-person enrollment levels will be, school by school and classroom by classroom. But what are some of the factors that our executive council are looking at? And is there any way that they can see tapping into that reserve amount and for what purpose? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So there is a real concern expressed by the HR department, and we do recognize that there is going to be a challenge with distance learning. When we figure out, or when the data, when we're finished with all the confirmation for attendance, that data will tell us how many teachers we required for the distance learning piece. The equation that we don't know is what reorgs will take place as a result of a reduction in classrooms, because you know that they're not going to all come out of grade 3, which means your grade 3 teacher is now available to do distance learning. We know that spread is not going to be evenly or distributed in the way we would like. So it's going to cause us some real organizational challenges to say, how many teachers do we need in order to facilitate that distance learning? And we know that we may have to come back and say, you know what, there's a cost associated with this. I can't tell you what that is right now because we need to go through the numbers. The data will tell us, but there is a fear. We recognize that there's going to be a challenge there for sure.
So supplementary, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
I just want to confirm my understanding of that answer. So does that mean, Norm, that we're looking at, there could be a potential then of having to hire additional staff, whether to support classroom or virtual learning, and that would be what you'd be coming to us with in terms of advising we need to draw from the reserves in order to be able to do this?
There's a strong possibility of that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to, Margaret, I'm going to call for the to vote on the amendment. Trustee Gibson.
Sorry, that was my question, Madam Chair. So we're just voting just on the amendment? You're going to...
So I'm going to we will vote just on the amendment, and I will read it as best I can. Margaret, would you follow along and make sure that I've got it right? So the first part remains the same right through to September. On your it stays the same right through till the word September, and then
That's correct.
You're frozen, Dree. The vagaries of technology. You're frozen, Dree.
These expectations. Margaret,
could you repeat that, please? I think you froze for a while.
You can hear you for a while.
Okay, sorry. The amendment has placed challenging expectations on boards in regards to optimal physical distancing in classrooms and on buses, and to request that the minister provide additional new funding to achieve those expectations. And Margaret's giving me the high sign. I will read this as many times as you need to hear it before we vote on it. Is everybody ready for the vote? Thank you very much. Trustee Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to be clear that if this is voted down, we then vote on the original motion. Is that correct?
Exactly right. Yeah.
Thank you.
And even if it's passed, we then still have to vote on the entire motion.
Okay, yes. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Okay. So Director Blazik, are you ready for the poll vote, please? And this is just the amendment, Director Blazik.
Okay. Trustee Clement?
I must abstain.
Trustee Dubosky? She's not with us.
She's left,
Okay.
Director Blazik.
Trustee Dewar?
I'm going to oppose.
Trustee Gibson?
Opposed.
Trustee Honda?
Oppose.
Trustee Cosmerly?
Opposed.
Trustee Morrison?
Opposed.
Trustee St. Jean?
Opposed.
Trustee Stringer?
In favor.
The amendment is defeated. Now we're going to go back to the motion that is on your page, that the board write a letter to the Minister of Education to advise of our deep concern that its planning for reopening schools in September does not adequately provide for a safe reopening. Does not adequately provide for a safe reopening. Moved, and we have a mover and a seconder, I believe. Who's the mover and the seconder?
Margaret Stringer and Judy Cosmerly.
Thank you very much. Are you ready for that question? Judy Cosmerly? Trustee Cosmerly.
Sorry, just one comment. If we vote in favor of this, and I would be more inclined to vote in favor of this motion, I would like us to include a lot of the information that Trustee Stringer provided in her explanation in support of her earlier amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know that the communications officer, Nicole Charette, is listening to all of this, and she will include the many suggestions that are being made. Trustee Gibson and then Trustee Morrison.
Thank you, Chair Dewar. I just wanted to make a comment that, this motion, while it doesn't give specific instances like the amendment that was just defeated. This motion very clearly says that we are not adequately providing for a safe reopening.
Yes, it does.
It does. And I guess I'm the problem. I agree with the motion and I'm probably going to support it. But I'm very concerned about the mixed message that we're sending, because we've been all over the media all week saying this plan is safe, it is solid, it is stable. And if this motion were to be passed, we're saying the opposite. We're saying we don't have the resources for a safe reopening. So it's just another one of these situations where we're entrusting, as you all know, the day-to-day running of schools to the director and his executive team. And this motion is basically saying that we're not delivering, and we're requesting assistance from the minister in order to deliver the safe plan that we want to. So it is a very much a conundrum, and I was just hoping to hear some other comments and concerns from other trustees around that idea.
I have other trustees waiting, so Trustee Morrison and then Trustee Clement. And then Trustee Cosmerly.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick things. I want to just ditto Trustee Gibson's comments. That's my concern with the way that motion is worded. I voted for it at strategic planning, but then upon reflection, I'm looking at it, and there is now an implication that we're not providing a safe entry into school, and that's not true. So that's my concern about that. And the problem I had with the last motion we defeated is that the amendment that we defeated was just that last phrase that added the additional resources. That's what got me, because I agreed with Judy Cosmely on that one too, that opens it up to we gave you authority to access your reserves. So until you deplete that, don't come to us, is what I'm looking at to be the immediate response. So I'm in the same dilemma as I see some of my colleagues of being in. I want to give a message of that I don't think we've been well supported for a variety of reasons, but I'm not prepared to go on record to saying we're not providing a safe re-entry for kids. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Clement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Exactly what everybody's saying. And I know this government has been after our reserves from the beginning. So this plays right into their hands. But also providing a safe reopening does not adequately, that sends a message that we're not doing a good job. This executive council is doing what they've have been put forward with the public health initiative. So I cannot accept this motion the way it stands. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Trustee Clement. Appreciate it. Trustee Cosmerly.
Just one comment. If you look at the motion, it says that it's our deep concern with its planning. We're referring to the Ministry of Education. We are not saying our planning. I think we're clear, and I think what we do is we talk, as Trustee Stringer did, about the wonderful job that we are doing at our end. Our concern is with the ministry's planning and the ministry's plan, really, with respect to the reopening of schools. Puts a lot of pressure on us and is causing these challenges to us. That's my comment.
Thank you very much. Trustee Stringer. Trustee Stringer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lots to think about. I guess Trustee Morrison had suggested that if that amendment, she might be interested. Maybe she's interested in moving an amendment in which we would say that the board write a letter to the Minister of Education to advise of our, this is an amendment of the amendment, not the original, just to be clear. It's a new amendment, that it's planning for reopening schools in September has placed challenging expectations in boards in regards to optimal physical distancing in classrooms and buses, period. Trustee Morrison, do I understand that that's something that you would possibly move or support?
Yes.
Madam Chair, where do we go from here in terms of an amendment of an amendment?
I'm trying to no, the amendment is gone. The amendment is off the table.
So this is a new amendment.
New amendment.
To the original, and if you want to make a new amendment, would you give that to me again, please? Stop it. Just start after September.
Has placed challenging expectations on boards in regards to optimal physical distancing in classrooms and on buses.
If Trustee Stringer is moving that, I'll second it, Madam Chair.
Now, excuse me, Madam Chair, do we need to go back? We were discussing the original motion. Do we need to address that, or can we move on with this?
No. Trustee Stringer, as long as we have an amendment, we deal with the amendment. We've made the amendment. We're going to deal with that. But I have to find out what's different about this amendment and the earlier amendment. What's the difference?
The difference is that we are no longer in the statement requesting to provide additional new funding to achieve these expectations. I assume that Trustee Morrison is suggesting that we write a letter, a more broad-based letter expressing the challenges that boards across this province are having with the process of planning by the province.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you.
I would like to say that that first motion, I was concerned that as I expressed, I'm very pleased with the work that we are doing. I was concerned that it was giving the wrong impression about where we should be looking for improvement. It's at the provincial level that I'm looking for more support.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are we ready to talk about the amendment? The amendment now only. Anita? Trustee Gibson, I'm so sorry. I apologize.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just with regard to Trustee Stringer's last comment, I feel a little bit like we're going around in circles here because there's been quite a few comments where people have acknowledged that the Ontario government is not going to, and perhaps it's impossible to achieve the physical distancing in classrooms on buses. The comments about we can't double the buses, we can't double the classrooms. So again, we've come up with a plan that we're deeming safe, but we're sending a letter to the ministry that I think still clearly demonstrates that we don't think it's safe, or we would not be requesting these particular items. So this amendment doesn't really fix the conundrum, so to speak, for me. I don't know. That's just my comment.
Yeah. Trustee Stringer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think, as Director Blasek indicated, everyone is doing their best to layer strategies to do the very best that we can to ensure our students are safe. There's no doubt about that. That's happening all over the province. The intent of this letter is to express to the province that we need more, that we're challenged by what they're asking us to do. They're asking us to do something that's impossible.
Thank you, Trustee Stringer. Trustee Gibson.
So just as a further comment, that's exactly what I mean, if we are accepting that it's not possible to do what we're asking, I'm not quite sure why we're asking it rather than just going on the record that we didn't agree with this. But if we really don't agree with it, then we shouldn't be implementing it. I mean,
No. So,
Okay, I'm gonna call off the discussion if with your permission, please. And I'm going to ask Director Blazik to do the poll vote. The vote is on strictly the amendment. The amendment being has placed challenging expectation on boards in regards to optimal physical distancing in classrooms and on buses. That's the amendment. That's the amendment, yes.
Okay, Madam Chair.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Trustee Clement,
In favor.
Tabasky is absent. Trustee Dewar,
In favor?
Trustee Gibson,
opposed?
Trustee Honda,
In favor.
Trustee Cosmerly,
In favor.
Trustee Morrison,
In favor?
Trustee St. Jean,
In favor.
Trustee Stringer.
in favor.
It's carried.
The motion in its entirety, Director Blazik, I will read and then you will do a poll vote. Motion that the board write a letter to the Minister of Education to advise of our deep concern that it's planning, well, maybe I could even say the ministry planning for reopening schools in September has placed challenging expectations on boards in regards to optimal physical distancing in classrooms and on buses. No.
There's a word missing there somewhere. We need one more word in. Dina, somebody read it, that last part again.
I personally am hoping we go quickly to a vote.
Yeah, but I need to, a word is missing? What?
No, it seemed to me there was.
Margaret?
Don't worry about it.
I think I got it. Let's go to the vote.
Madam Chair, can I just clarify? Is it the vote that is on the agenda, or is it the vote that was modified?
No.
Okay.
Director Blazik, we have successfully passed, carried the amendment, and the amendment comes in right there.
Okay.
So we have to pass the entire motion with the amendment, and the amendment will fit in right after September.
Thank
So
you.
the motion reads, I'm going to do it again, that the board write a letter to the Minister of Education to advise of our deep concern that it's planning for reopening schools in September, has placed challenging expectations on boards in regards to optimal physical distancing in classrooms and on buses.
Thank you. Shall I go ahead?
Thank you.
I think that was unreasonable.
Shall I go ahead?
Please.
Trustee Clement,
In favor.
Trustee Tabasky is absent. Trustee Dewar,
In favor?
Trustee Gibson,
No.
Sorry, I was waving my hand.
No, we're voting. We're voting. Please, Trustee Gibson, it's time to vote.
Okay. Well, I didn't hear what Trustee Clement said. Was that important to the conversation? He broke up where he made a comment. No, it wasn't. Okay. So I'm voting on the letter to be written clearly to only mentioned these two particular issues. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've read it twice.
Okay. In favor.
Trustee Hunda,
In favor.
Trustee Cosmerly,
In favor?
Trustee Morrison,
In favor?
Trustee St. Jean,
In favor.
Trustee Stringer.
In favor.
Carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. The motion is carried.
Madam Chair?
Yes, trustee Clement. No, that's fine. That's fine.
I've just been called out. I have to go. Sorry.
All
I have to
right.
leave the meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stay safe. Doc.
Stay safe for sure.
Will do.
Okay. This,
Mm.
it's the one right in between the microphone and the camera that you click to turn it off. There we go. Okay, motion that the board write a letter to the Minister of Education to urgently request that Rainbow District School Board be made a designated board as recommended by the Strategic Planning Committee. Just be made a designated board as be made a designated board, period. Moved by Trustee Stringer, seconded by Trustee Morrison.
I'm not supporting, but I'll second it to have it under discussion.
Thank you. Trustee Stringer, did you want to speak?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. At our last meeting, trustees expressed a variety of concerns, and I realized that at this time the ministry granted us, that if at this time the ministry granted us designated status, implementing this before school starts would be challenging. That said, the province has created two classes of secondary students, the 75% who go to school in designated boards and the 25% such as our students in Rainbow Board. 75% will have maximum class sizes of 15 and the rest will have regular size classes of potentially 30 plus students. It's my opinion that this is inherently wrong. All children and families should be treated equally. I'm concerned that the province's designation of some boards has disadvantaged secondary students in Rainbow schools in regards to their ability to physically distance when they return to school. I ask trustees to support this motion on behalf of our secondary students. And just a final comment, this is something the province should have addressed in the beginning by deciding to have all students, frankly, elementary and secondary, but if they're going to do it, all students in the province, all boards as designated boards and not differentiated. Thank you.
Trustee Cosmerly, Trustee Morrison.
I'm assuming I can talk first, sorry.
Yes, Cosmerly.
I was prepared to support this motion until Director Blazik made his presentation and to me outlined quite clearly why this was no longer something that we should be looking at. So I will not be able to support this motion.
Thank you. Trustee Morrison.
Keep my comments again very brief. I too, at one point, I supported this motion, but my view on this has changed over the course of the last week for a variety of reasons. Some of them Trustee Cosmerly just stated, so thank you for that. But in addition, I don't want us to be in the dog's breakfast that the other designated boards are now in. They can't even get a plan approved. And their school is starting in 3 weeks. And they're still figuring out how to get a plan approved through the ministry. And in the end, what it would mean would be Rainbow secondary students would be getting half time, whether it's alternate days or alternate weeks, they'd be getting half time in class learning. Our parents, according to the survey results so far, 85% of them are saying they want their kids back in school. So I want us to focus our resources and our staff expertise on making sure that's done well and as safely as we can. So unfortunately, my view has changed even from a week ago till now, but I guess that shouldn't be uncommon. It's a sign of the times. We're getting new information every day and every hour. So today I won't be able to support it. Thank you.
Trustee St. Jean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am also not in favor of this particular motion for very similar reasons that have been shared by my fellow trustees. And I feel that other factors that are considered with regards to our geographic location and other case numbers and such. And I'm also very concerned that if we were to become a designated board, the impact to the planning that's already in place and other factors would grow exponentially.
Thank you very much. Trustee Gibson.
Yes, Chair Doer?
Did you have a question? Sorry, did I?
No, I didn't have my hand up. No.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Trustee Hunda. My apologies.
Just a really quick comment. For all the things that Trustee Stringer mentioned, I totally agree. And these are all the things that pulls at my heart and the reason that I have decided to vote this many years of my life in education. However, I too, after this week and seeing what's been going on, hearing what our staff have to say, that at this point in time, I can't support it either. I think that the plan that our staff has in place, what we're ready to do at this point, gives everyone the opportunity to prepare for a safe way to go back to school. I think that the lesser of two evils, I like ours way better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director Blazik, would you please call the poll vote?
Trustee Caban absent. Trustee Dubowski absent. Trustee Doer.
Opposed.
Trustee Gibson.
Opposed.
Trustee Hunda.
Opposed.
Trustee Cosmerly.
Opposed.
Trustee Morrison.
Opposed.
Trustee St. Jean.
Opposed.
Trustee Stringer.
In favor.
Okay, it's defeated.
Motion is defeated. Thank you very much. Request for leave of absence. There are none. Director's remarks. Director Blazik.
Yeah, just very briefly, I just wanted to remind the trustees that for our kinder camp that starts August 24th, going through August 28th, we have 230 students that have been successful in their applications. The second piece is we have our transition program running for the same time from August 24th to the 28th. We have 72 students that have applied and have been accepted and are now will be moving forward.
Good. Thank you very much. The OSPA director has left. The student trustee is not attending. Trustees' remarks and questions. Trustee Cosmerly.
Just one, Madam Chair. I wanted to I want to propose a motion with respect to the reserve funds. And that motion is that the board write to the Ministry of Education to express its grave concern that boards use reserve funds to enhance physical distancing and improve air quality. So I'll wait to see if there's a seconder before I provide a rationale.
Would you read it one more time, please?
Sure. That the board write to the Ministry of Education to express its grave concern that boards use reserve funds to enhance physical distancing and improve air quality.
A seconder, moved by Judy Cosmerly, seconder. Are you seconding, Trustee Hunda? Yes, seconded by Trustee Hunda, thank you very much. Discussion? Judy Cosmerly, would you like to speak first?
Yes, please, Madam Chair. On August 13th, the Minister of Education announced he was, quote, unlocking, unquote, 500 million in board reserve funds to allow boards to use, if they so choose, to enhance physical distancing and improve air quality as we move towards the reopening of schools in September. On the face of it, this is a good news story, but I would contend that it actually isn't. Through careful budget management, boards have reserved funds set aside to pay unanticipated and expenses, high priority initiatives, and to make up for lost revenue to ensure a balanced budget at fiscal year end. Since at least 2015-16, our board has faced significant funding reductions to its base budget as part of declining enrollment, as well as the ministry school board efficiencies and modernization strategy that was introduced in 2014-15. As all of us know, these changes have had an impact on our board. Had we not made significant draws from our reserves at year end in 2017 and 2018, we would not have ended the year with balanced budgets. As we prepare for the 2021 school year, we know we face a number of uncertainties. We don't know what our school enrollment numbers and hence our GSNs will be. We don't know if the extra funds made available by the government to support a safe reopening of schools will be sufficient for the year. We don't know if we will have unexpected large ticket expenses in the year. There's just so much that we don't know about this year because we have never had a year like it before. And because we don't know, the financial risk on our board is greater than usual. What we do know is that we will still be expected to have a balanced budget at year end. Our board has a very modest reserve fund with some of the funds earmarked for specific use. To me, using reserve funds as we now are being allowed to use them by the ministry creates a significant risk to our board. I believe that by unlocking board reserve funds, the government has absconded from its financial responsibility with respect to students and staff health and safety, and instead put that responsibility on boards. And by doing this, it has put all boards in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. If a board chooses to use reserve funds as now allowed by the ministry, less funds will be available in the short and long term to manage financial risk or support board initiatives. And if a board chooses not to use its reserve funds as allowed, it may be perceived by the public as not doing enough to support student and staff health and safety. Clearly, our board, and in fact all boards, need to push responsibility back to the province to provide sufficient funding for all aspects of student and staff health and safety, including costs related to enhanced physical distancing and improved air quality. I applaud the Ontario Public School Board Association for speaking up for boards on this matter. Now it's our turn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if the motion passes, are you going to share that with our communications officer?
I can.
Good. Trustee Morrison. No, you're.
I got it. Doreen. Just want to say thank you very much, Trustee Cosme, for that. This has been a concern for me since that announcement last Thursday. I thought it was creating false expectations in the public forum. So I agree with all the points. I would happily support this. And I also just want to make a comment through you to Trustee Stringer. And I know this is normal because she probably is sitting there thinking, well, that doesn't sound much different than what I had proposed. And that was defeated. But this is done in the context of that announcement, which basically was freeing up money that was no freeing up money. It's a shell game. And so I agree with all the points that Trustee Cosme said. I would like to support the motion, but with the support of the mover, Trustee Cosme, I'm hoping that we're not into writing multiple letters and that this issue gets rolled into the other. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for stating that. So we've got Trustee Stringer, Trustee Gibson, and Trustee Cosmerly. Trustee Stringer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will support this motion. As I've already expressed, new dollars are needed from the province. $309 million is not sufficient to deal with a pandemic and achieving physical distancing in our schools. And this should not be coming from reserves. New dollars are needed, and so I will support this motion.
Thank you very much. Trustee Gibson?
Thank you, Chair Dewar. I support the writing of the letter. My concerns, as usual, are that it does not go far enough. And I was just wondering, and the wording of the letter is not where it doesn't go far enough. That's fine. It's just my concern is sending a letter off into the ether, as it were, and sometimes we don't get a response at all. Sometimes we do, but it's months later. So I was just looking for something with a little more action, I guess, to go along with the letter. Would we be looking at a press release after sending the letter? Would we be communicating with OPSPA, with our MPPs? It's fine to make a public statement, and I feel like that's what we're doing with these letters. But if they just sort of sit there and no one reads them or responds, then obviously they're not much use. So I don't know if there's any support for an amendment where we would make a media release or an announcement, something to make this a stronger statement than just silently sending a letter. But if there's no support for that, then I understand. It's just my thoughts on the matter.
Thank you very much. Trustee Morrison?
If the motion passes, I'm assuming this letter, as we have done before, and we've got a great communications officer who will be writing the letter, will include CCs to other member boards, to OPSPA, to our MPPs throughout our whole area, so that they are aware of this, as we've done on other communiques. So I just want to state that as part of, I'm looking for a nod. Chair Dewar?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
And in terms of the other issue, I'm not sure that we could, I was also thinking perhaps we include a time frame for a response, given the fact that we're pretty close to school opening, so that we're really looking for a response within a reasonable amount of time. Now, I know Nicole can get this together for us pretty quickly. I'll leave it with you guys to determine what a fair time is, but clearly we're talking about sometime in the next week. We're looking for a response by the end of next week. That's the time frame my head is working at. And in terms of a press release, I think we can talk about that as well. Perhaps not included in the motion, but we can talk about the fact that we may want to make a press release if this motion passes, because a press release can just be trustees of the Rainbow District School Board passed a motion last night to send a statement to the province, that kind of thing. But again, I'll leave that expertise to our communications officer. Thank you.
But did I hear you, Trustee Morrison, recommend that both of these motions be sent under the cover of one letter?
Yes. I don't see that. To me, it all rolls into our generalized concerns, and the reserve thing is a specific issue related to an announcement. That just gives more meat on the bones. It's a specific example of how they're not really supporting boards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just for your information, so just to elaborate, I found out for the last letter we wrote, how to send it to all of the other boards. So we will also CC the chairs of all the other boards, and that way, you know how we get them from other boards, ours will also be shared at other board levels for whatever way they do it. Trustee Gibson, and then I'm going to end with Trustee Cosmerly.
Thank you, Chair Dewar. So thank you for that, Trustee Morrison. I guess my concern for putting it in the motion was that it is a deviation from past practice. We've sent a lot of letters, and I don't recall us ever issuing a media release. And often we don't deviate from past practice, so I just wanted to make sure that that was something that was possible. In terms of copying it to all the member boards and MPPs, I know that has been our past practice. I guess my concern is that the letter is usually sent out, and as a trustee, I don't receive a copy of the letter until the next board meeting. which means all those other people have received it before I've even seen it. So if I was to be contacted by them to discuss it, for example, I would not have seen a copy of the letter. So can it be CC'd to trustees as well of the board? I've seen other boards that do that as regular practice. They CC their own trustees.
If you were contacted by whom, Trustee Gibson?
Well, if we're sending the letter, let's just say best case scenario, this passes, the letter's sent in the next couple of days.
Yes.
When would I see a copy of the letter?
The way you mentioned.
So at the next board meeting, September 1st?
Yes, right. And your concern is that
so the letter will be sent to all member boards, to MPPs. Now, I converse with MPPs, so within the next few days they'd receive a letter, and I would not have seen a copy of the letter yet. I would be aware of the motion, but not the actual letter. So when the letter's written, can we be CC'd? Can we, as trustees, receive a copy of the letter on the same day that it's sent, to be specific?
I was just Morrison. Comment in support. These are unusual circumstances. We are trying to apply political pressure right now. I would suggest we find a way that as soon as we have that letter done and signed it on the way, that trustees have a copy of it.
Thank you very much. Would you just indicate by nodding that this is the direction you wish? The majority have spoken, and so we will do it that way. Thank you. But, Trustee Gibson.
Sorry, and could that also apply to the previous letter that we've already, well, it's going to be one letter, I suppose, but the previous motion that we passed. Thank you.
There you go. It's one letter. Thank you very much. Can we please vote on this motion? Director Blazik?
Trustee Clement, absent. Trustee Dubosky, absent. Trustee Dewar?
In favor.
Trustee Gibson?
In favor.
Trustee Hunda?
In favor.
Trustee Cosmery?
In favor.
Trustee Morrison?
In favor.
Trustee St. Jean?
In favor.
Trustee Stringer?
In favor.
Carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. Very much. The motion is carried. Under trustees' remarks, I have a few things I'd like to bring up. Yesterday, I was able to attend. Oh, sorry, Trustee Morrison.
I'll wait, Chair Dewar. If you'd like, I can wait. You were on a roll.
Oh, sorry. You know what? You're right. We hadn't completely finished. That was just one of the items under trustees' remarks. So if you have something under trustees' remarks, is that what you're?
Yes, I was going to try to acknowledge and thank the staff again, but I've already made my comments on that, and I hope they were heard. But the last comment I wanted to say was I just wanted to thank you, Chair Dewar. This was not an easy meeting to chair. We ended up in convoluted, circuitous kind of discussions, and you've managed to lead us through it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yesterday, I was able to attend another one of those teleconferences with the chairs of school boards and with Minister Lecce and his staff. I signed in, you have to sign in the special spot to indicate that I had a question. But once again, question period ended before I was recognized. 6 different boards were allowed multiple questions. Concerns included requests for more time. There were boards that asked for more time to start, that start time be delayed. Requests for more staff and requests for more funds. The answers to each of these was that boards need to be creative. So we must never forget the fact that Rainbow District School Board pardon me, has been mandated to implement the Ontario Ministry of Education's plan to open schools in September. If we were to make our own plan, it might look very different. In a news item by Sarah McCleary that was published in the Sault Ste. Marie newspaper on August the 10th, she said, and I quote, "The Ontario government recently announced plans for getting kids back into classrooms next month. The plan has been heavily criticized since, and rightly so, given its many flaws. Nevertheless, I'm going to make a plea to everybody out there on behalf of all the stressed out parents feeling the same as me," meaning Sarah, "please stop bashing the plan on social media." End quote. Later, she goes on to say, "I can only imagine how those parents with no choice but to send their kids feel when they see those posts." End quote. Then she suggests the following, and I quote again, "If they know they have to send their kids, offer them reassurance. Help them come up with ideas about how to prepare their kids for school." End quote. And I would like to add, our schools will do everything it possibly can to help our children. Our teachers, our staff, our custodians, they will be there to help. From providing barrels of cleaning products to making use of outdoor spaces and every available indoor space. We all want the same thing, and we're willing to work for it. The saying about needing a village to raise a child has never been truer than now. We are very fortunate in that the rate of known cases in Sudbury, on Manitoulin Island, and in Espanola is extremely low. Nil to low. Our entire community needs to commit to keeping it that way. Our health units are poised to assist in every way they can. Parents and guardians will provide monitoring to ensure their children are healthy before attending school. And our staff will protect themselves in order to protect their students. This is not ideal. But then having a worldwide pandemic is so not ideal. Thank you, and I hope we stay safe. I wish that everyone stays safe. Take a look at the information and proposals. They were nil this month. Future meetings are listed. Board meeting September 1st, strategic planning committee meeting September 15th. That we do now adjourn. And by the way, I thank each of the trustees for the time that you take to put in to get ready for these meetings, for all of your comments and help and discussion. Thank each and every one of you. That we do now adjourn, moved by Trustee Morrison, seconded by Trustee Cosmerly. I'm going to ask you to wave goodbye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone.